Well, here we go again. We're just trying to cover up where we couldn't finish in the 15-minute period that we have to do because of technical issues. We have to take breaks every now and then. But where we ended up was talking about give and you shall receive and judging.
Continuing Proverbs 11,
Yeah.
Today's November 11th.
And Proverbs 11, it talks clearly about there is one who scatters and yet increases the more. And we were talking about the farm and how...
Farmers, right.
Did you talk about that in the last session? I can't remember.
Yes, I did. About the tomato plants, how you planted those.
So this is such an important principle because in nature, God has designed that if we mix our creativity with our labor into God's resources, by nature things multiply. They don't die. But it gets hard. But in the New Testament, Jesus took this principle just a little bit further in the sense that he actually talks about his Father being merciful. So let's read Luke, because that's the part we didn't get to.
Okay, be merciful just as your Father is merciful. Do not judge, and you will not be judged. Do not condemn, and you will not be condemned. Forgive, and you will be forgiven. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over will be poured into your lap.
Okay, this principle of judging is very, very important because it is no way is the New Testament or the Old Testament saying we should never make judgments.
We make 1,000 judgments a day. Turn left or right.
What's a judgment you made since you've been up now for a couple hours?
I decided, should I take my allergy pill today or not?
Okay. Or should I take poison or take no poison?
Yeah.
Maybe take a vitamin? See, those are judgments. There are people out there making that decision. So we do make judgments. It is impossible to live in this world without making judgments.
So judgment is the same thing as making a decision about something?
It is. That's why many people, many Christians, can't make decisions anymore. Because their decisions are made on their own values. In our culture, as we've secularized and put ourselves in the box, we end up with the idea that we are better than others, or our culture is better than others. All we have is our tribalistic ideas. And the problem is there's no truth. Without revelation, the people perish, it says in Proverbs. And what we end up with is we end up with a culture that only can judge based that they're better than the other person. So they're always trying to put each other down. But the Bible tells us that we have revelation, and the average man can actually go to the truth which is revealed.
You know, this brings to my mind the culture and stuff. Is I remember when we were traveling and we went to church in this little downtown place in New Orleans. And there were people, there were actually seminary students there who ran this storefront church. And we just happened to see it while we were walking around one day, and we decided to go on Sunday. And you have these very nice seminary students dressed, clean, they had their music and everything. And then you see the people that came in from the street, which were drug addicts, prostitutes, alcoholics. But they were sitting there along with some other Christians that, you could...
We're kind of helping do this church, yeah.
And there were all manners of people because they loved the Lord. They wanted to reach out to these people. Now, in some churches that you would go to, those people would not be welcomed.
So they would have, in this church, they were not judging on the basis of their smell,
or their clothing,
of their dress, of their hair combed, of the cultural things.
Right.
They were judging on the basis of revelation, which said all men are created in the image of God.
And I remember specifically we were standing there and you were talking for quite a while with this man who was an alcoholic, but he knew he needed the Lord. He knew it.
Yeah. Well, alcoholics need the Lord as much as anybody.
That's
right. How you overcome your alcoholism. First you receive the Lord, and then He gives you the power to live. But this idea of judging is not we don't make judgments. Like I was sitting there and I wasn't stupid. I knew I was probably amongst the rabbles of Bourbon Street.
Mm-hmm.
This was not a safe place.
You didn't hand him your wallet to hold.
I didn't show him where my wallet was. I made sure my wallet was in a safe place, even in church.
Yeah.
But
that's using judgment and wisdom.
I
knowing
judged
what time it
on the
is.
basis, made judgments on the basis of revelation,
Mm-hmm.
which I could see people had problems, but I could also not condemn them, as it says in the New Testament, that Christ died for them. I could tell them that.
Right.
Because he died for the sins of the whole world.
Yeah.
Not just me, not just the Christians.
Not just the nice-smelling, properly clothed people.
He died for the sins of the whole world.
Right.
That doesn't mean that all people are going to heaven either.
No.
That means that they have to receive the gift. And that's why most people actually blaspheme the Holy Spirit, convicting them of their sin, righteousness, and judgment coming. And so therefore they go their own way and they're destroyed. And they go to hell. But Jesus died for the sins. He died once for all men. But this idea, we're way off of where we wanted to be. Given, it will be given to you, Jesus said. The principle of giving. And within farming, that the basic of all things, we have to postpone the gratification of our resources to farm. You've heard of farmers eating their seed.
Mm-hmm.
That means
It's not a good thing.
It's a bad thing. Eating your seed. We've seen that. We've done it. Had to do it at times where we have almost no resources and we had to eat our seed. There's not much left. So to survive, to stay alive, you have to eat what is fruitful, what multiplies. That's why you don't want to dip into your savings, because that's kind of your seed in the modern man. But in agrarian world, in which Jesus is talking to, and you know, this is a good time. I maybe ought to talk about this. So many people love to consult the theologians. There are the Calvinists, there's the Arminians, there's the Louis Berry Schaeffer systematic theology. There's all these theologies. You can get books and books and books. There's not Aristotle, but Aquinas. All this history of theology.
And theology is what?
And theology is a way to organize the Bible in another way. But God didn't write the Bible. Now think about this. This is very important. The Bible, God didn't give it to us as a systematic theology.
Didn't he just give it as his word to us?
He gave it as history, as poetry. He gave it as prose. He gave it as letters. And he mostly gave it in agrarian terms. It was given to the common man. It doesn't take a seminary degree to understand the Bible. Matter of fact, in the New Testament it teaches that God gives us a teacher. Every believer has a teacher that will lead him in all truth. Who's the teacher?
I think it's the Holy Spirit.
That's right. He gives us indwelling Holy Spirit that brings us to people and things and times and teachers. And so many times we're tempted to just quickly go consult the theologians. And very sadly, the theologians can lead you astray. A good example is Mormonism. It's a cult. It's polytheistic, but it wants so desperately to be Christian. Well, it's not. It's New Age. But it so desperately wants to set up its prophets and its pastors as over you, because that's how Phariseeism works. Well, Jesus actually warned against that, and the gospel is written, and the Bible is written so anyone can understand it. But you have to be as a child. You have to go think of it as God interacting with man, nature, and humanity in every way. And that's why this is not written in systematic theology. This is a story. The most important principle since Christ was given. You shall receive.
Think about when the Bible was written. They didn't have concordances. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have. I mean, I know the Jewish had their study books and stuff, but the Bible, as it was written, was just written so everyone could read it.
That's right.
And understand it without going,
well,
to everything else to
even
understand
the New
it.
Testament, which is written in Greek, was written in the common man's Greek, not the classical Greek. Hebrew was a very fluent language, and kind of the people could read it. The Jews could read. They're people of the book. Matter of fact, Islam hates them because they're people of the book. Christians and Jews are people of the book. The book, and it's not the books, because the Bible is so unified as one book, but it's really 66 books. But everybody agrees it's one. And it's the one in the many. It's the way God is. There's one God and three persons, the one in the many. We see plants are that way. We see that trees are one in many. There's palm trees and there's oak trees. They're both trees, but they're different. But
well, you
they're
think
the
of
same.
when Paul talked, and he said he was a Jew among Jews, and he was probably one of the most educated people of writers of the Bible, and yet he wrote so that the most uneducated person could understand what he was saying.
Well, he also wrote so it challenges you, because it was the Holy Spirit inspiring him,
right,
to the most educated.
Right. It's both. It's both.
It's simple, but it takes
profound.
It's not you can't understand. It's like building a house. You first have to build the foundation. Then you put up some walls. Then you put up a roof. Then you put up the outside. You have to do it and grow the house. In the same way that a plant. First I plant the seed, then I cultivate the seed, and right now here it is November 11th, and I have my cucumbers just sprouted this week. And that may sound crazy, but that's what we do here in Florida. All you people up there in Iceland, up there in the north.
Iceland.
It's
just like the fields are full of strawberry plants.
Oh, they're everywhere. It's
and,
so beautiful.
If you're in Alaska right now, that's the farthest thing from your mind is a strawberry plant.
And sadly, I never planned on being in Florida. It wasn't my plan. It's where God forced me here.
God put us here.
And we'll tell you that story. But sometime. But we're running out of time again. Got this principle of the man who scatters will have. It's not you try to run people away, but it's you give
Well,
generously.
it's also not you grab it tightly in your fist and hold on to it.
It's not hoarding, it's giving. That's why capitalism works, because capitalism has made man so he gives to others by investing. When you put money in the stock market or you invest in another man's business, which are both basically the same thing, you give. You give that man the ability to have the capital to grow, but you receive.
I know there's been times when we thought we didn't have much as far as the way of food, but I know that I always have canned goods put away, and I know that there's been a couple times when people worse off than us have needed some food, and I've said, okay, let's go in the cupboard and see what we can find them, and there's always enough, and we've never had where there was nothing in the cupboard.
Right. So you give and you shall receive. The man who scatters will actually increase. The man who actually withholds or hoards, the concept of hoarding.
Let's read this verse 38
and
real quick.
We've got to finish with this because we've already
Give,
gone
and it will
time.
be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap. For with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Yeah. Don't hang on to it. Hoard it. Be selfish.
And actually, one of the reasons we're able to do this show is because of a man who, out of his even poverty, he's not rich. He's not starving, but he's not rich. Gives to us so we can produce this show. So we thank him and we thank the Lord for him. And we also are so excited that we can bring you Wisdom TV with
Lee
and Dan. Oh, I
doesn't rhyme though that
you
way.
You got to say Dan.
Oh.
With
Dan
and Lee.
Okay, there we go.
That's because we're one. We're husband and wife, and we've been married for 45 years. So see you next week.